Hello everyone, welcome to this special video edition of the Pay to Play podcast. I am Rob Farker, your host, and I wanted to record this on video instead of as a straight up podcast or write it out as a weblog post. I've been trying to put some stuff down on the weblog for the last couple of days, and I've realised that I don't really like any of what I'm writing. So this is a quick update as a furtherance of some of the stuff I've been putting up on Facebook about the direction of the podcast. I'll try and keep this short, ideally less than 10 minutes. I've got some notes here to keep myself on track, so if you see me glancing down or around, it's just because I'm bringing some material up. Anyway, enough waffling, let's get into it. I have been mentioning a change in direction for the podcast. I think you've seen, if you followed Facebook, you will have seen me promote a couple of blog updates by a lady by the name of Bernadette Jiwa, who maintains a marketing weblog called The Story of Telling. It is absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. It talks about people rather than figures or tactics. And it's really up my alley. I like the way Bernadette thinks about marketing, which is interesting because it was her post that kind of kicked this all off. Again, you might have seen it, but I'll just read it out to you very quickly. Apologies, Bernadette, if I don't quite get this right, but it was called Marketing in the Connection Economy, and it reads, "Traditional marketing, conceived for an industrial age, asks us to believe in the wisdom of the funnel, create something for most people, compete for the interest of some of them, and convert a handful to customers. Ironically, what works in the connected economy, where our potential customers have access to information and choice, is the reverse. Create something that isn't for everyone. Focus on delighting those and only those people, then give them a reason to spread the story of how you exceeded their expectations. We don't win today by reaching the masses. We win by becoming meaningful to the few." Now, this came at a time where I'd been a little bit frustrated with the podcast. I had been working on a logo and a new background for the social media websites, and it was doing that logo that caused the frustration. I was trying to summarize in one small logo all the various ways that you can get paid to play, and it was a logo that had 3 sub-logos in it, and then each one of those sub-logos was made up of 2 icons. And yeah, it felt like a struggle trying to distill this broad idea of all the ways that people tend to make things that they enjoy into one logo. And when that came along, I thought, well, maybe I've been going about this the wrong way. I am trying to approach too many people rather than concentrating on a few. So instead of getting rid of that frustration, I suppose, it kind of changed direction. I wanted to maybe narrow down the amount of people whom I was addressing in the podcast. And the brainwave that I had was maybe try and target the geek market, the geek market. Let's face it, I run an internet radio show. That makes me a geek. I love science fiction and to a certain extent fantasy. As I say on my website, I love sleek futures with cool machines in them. And 20 of the 42 episodes that I've published so far have been with geeks, so, you know, it seemed logical. Also, if we're talking about marketing the podcast, it would allow me to sort of synergize, if you will, and, you know, this speaks to the mindset at the time, with sites that might spread the word of the podcast, places like maybe Geek of Oz, which I'd sort of been making some contact with. I don't know if I mentioned, but last year I even made overtures to another major geek-oriented gamer culture website, and I got pretty far before in the end managers of the site decided that, well, they did have a fair few podcasts as it was already, and that maybe I wasn't the right fit for them at the time. And of course there is the point that with me wanting to get paid to play, geeks have cash. They have enough cash to support a comic store and a board gaming store in Flipping Cairns, one of those towns that, you know, if it weren't maybe for the tourist market, you'd think would be in the middle of nowhere. So it seemed like a natural idea. I had an idea for a new name for the site, one that translated well into a fairly simple logo, and I had ideas for a new backing banner. So yeah, I started proposing the idea to the folks on my mailing list, and I had 2 responses. One of whom was from someone who's fairly new to the podcast, a recent joiner of the list. She's a bit of a geek herself. She liked it. She thought it'd be great. I told her the new name. She thought it was fantastic. Her husband did too. And the other piece of feedback was from one of my longest fans, and she hated it. Felt like the new direction pretty much excluded her from the podcast. She enjoyed the breadth of people I was getting on. It meant that one of the people that she'd asked if I could get on the podcast, if I went down this new direction, it would mean that I wouldn't be chatting with her anymore, though she didn't specifically mention that in her objections. It was just one of the things that, you know, I realised was going to happen if I did go down this new direction. And she, in the end, she honestly felt like I was pretty much shoving her aside, and that kind of sucks given that she has been with the podcast since the beginning and before the beginning. I don't know, that sort of made me stop and think. And around about that time, one of the guests from the show, Kelly Gurnett of Cordelia Calls It Quits, she put an entry up on her blog entitled, "You've Already Made It. Did you know?" And yeah, it was another one of those things that arrived right about when I needed to read it, because one of the things that was really driving me to make these changes that I wanted to make to Pay to Play was frustration and fear and worry. I made a list for one of the blog posts that I was writing of the things I want. I want to get paid to play as well. I want to find ways of taking the things that I love doing and making enough profit from them to be able to make them my full-time gig. I want to be able to clear our debts. I want to work from home so that I can spend more time with Vicky and our dogs. I want to wake up with a smile on my face every day because today I get to do something bloody awesome with my work hours. And one of the things that Kelly said in her blog was this tendency that we have, that we tend to stop seeing what we have and focus only on what we still want. So I started breathing a bit more and reminding myself that not having all these things that I was getting hung up on didn't make me a bad person, that you know what, I am a good guy anyway. And maybe that's something that we all need to tell ourselves a little bit more often when we start driving ourselves nuts because our life is absent all of these things that we think are going to make us happy. Go read that blog by Kelly. I'll try and link to it through YouTube, because she talks about all of the things that she was doing thinking that she was going to make herself happy, including getting out of the 9-to-5 and becoming a full-time freelance writer, which when she achieved it, she sort of realised that she kind of exchanged one lot of stresses for another. She says it herself a lot better, and she talks about a couple of other things in her life that she's recently been able to fix, and that afterwards she sort of looked at herself in the mirror and went, why don't I feel better than I do right now? I thought that this was going to make me feel awesome. Why do I still feel kind of, okay, yay for me, I did it. Yeah, I don't feel as fantastic as I thought I was going to. Why? so I started, looking at the things that I did have and trying to calm down, meditate a little bit, focus on my breathing, and realize that what I do have is an awesome wife, a good day job working with some enthusiastic and supportive people, something I was reminded of today. Thank you very much, Troy. A house with a huge garden in a very pretty part of the world. Kelly, at the end of her post, asks, what things would yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago sort of look at in your life and go, holy crap, that is fantastic. A gorgeous pair of 2 medium-sized dogs, a motor scooter that I get to commute to work on every day, saving myself a ton in petrol and making the commuting experience quite a bit more interesting than when I was just driving every day, and eliminating a bloody parking hassle too. And my own internet radio show. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago I think I might have been flirting a bit with community radio, which sort of wound up being a bit of a... It wasn't a great fit for me in the end, or at least not that radio station. But yeah, I mean, if you told me 10 years ago I would have been hosting my own internet radio show and about some of the people I'd had on, including you, Kelly, thank you very much, I probably would have been standing there blinking in disbelief. So, factoring out chasing dollars and being scared of bills and surprise expenses that, have sort of drained us, and feeling like I ought to be further along in this pay-to-play journey than I am right now, I'm doing pretty well. And the pay-to-play podcast as it is, yeah, it's good. The guests I have had on are great, yes, including the non-geek ones, yeah, maybe the name and the and I would like a new logo still, because the logo sort of, it's got the brazen careerist thing in it, which thank you again, guys, very much for supporting me. I'm not sure whether I will be back in touch to discuss, maybe resuming the relationship, but I would like that option there if it doesn't happen, having an alternate logo. So, if any of you folks have any bright ideas, because I've been trying my best and it's not been working, and I don't really have the money at the moment to be able to afford a designer. And interestingly enough, I started this episode talking about the weblog of Bernadette Jiwa, The Story of Telling, and just today she came out with another entry, which is called Why Most Marketing Fails, and in it she writes, it's hard to communicate your value if you don't know what your customer's definition of value is. Most marketing fails because the marketer doesn't understand the story his customer wants to believe before he tells the story. So the real estate agent starts describing the proximity to grade schools without knowing if the couple has any children. And the balloon seller brings one of each balloon just in case. Before you explain where you're coming from, find out where your customer wants to go. So folks, tell me, not only all the stuff like who would you like to see on the podcast, and what sort of logo you reckon would be good, where do you want to go? I mean, not just what's your play and how would you like to make money of it, what's your ideal end state? I mean, tell me about the life that you lead and the happiness that you want, that you reckon getting paid to play will earn you. Tell me about how that colours the play, and tell me not just about the play itself, but why it makes you happy, how it sort of creates this zone of joy that you maybe can't find in the rest of your life, and what you reckon the rest of your life would look like if you were able to extend it out to the rest of your life. So long story short, after all the drumming up and enthusiasm building about the change in direction, for now I am just going to keep trying on the same way I have. I owe some apologies to some guests with whom I did queue up chat dates. I hope you guys after this are still willing to give me some of your time, and I will be in touch soon. And to everybody else who I did talk about the new direction with, considering that 20 or 40 of my guests are still geeks, I reckon I will still be creating great content for you and still keep things broad enough that maybe looking outside our own zones of comfort and where we think we're going to be happy might give us some new insights into maybe what we really do need to do in order to seek out some happiness. And I hope you can find some happiness right now, even when you're not getting paid to play. And if you are getting paid to play and you are looking around at your life and you're thinking, well, shouldn't I be more happy than I am right at the moment? I hope you can find a way of finding that happiness. So please get in touch, and in the meantime, I won't say play first, pay later, because as someone did comment recently, it's a bit of a dodgy tagline, because you sort of think about pay later in terms of earning money later, but it's got that connotation of pay the price later. Have a good time now and worry about the dodgy liver or the broken bones that you're going to have to suffer through. They're not important. They're for some other time. So if you've got any great ideas for a new outro instead of pay first, play later, I'd love to hear them, and we'll see if any of them strike a chord with me. So in the meantime, folks, thank you very much for your attention and your time.